Perfect. So, hello everyone. Thank you for having me today. I will present to all of you my master thesis work on the exploitation of birds at Blenien rock shelter. So, this study falls under a large research question, which is how did prehistoric societies interacted with small prey and specifically birds? Our aim is to document economical and cultural behaviors from past populations. And here we are interested in knowing which birds were hunted or captured by humans, which species were favored, and for which purposes. So if it was for nutritional purposes, raw materials, or symbolic use. We studied Blenien, which is a late Paleolithic rock shelter located in northeastern France, next to the Jura Mountains. And it has been occupied at multiple occasions from the Middle Magdalenian to Aztecian periods, so around 17,000 to 13,000 CalBP. And our study was focused on two layers of the late Magdalenian level, so layer B1 and layer B2. And to give you a little bit of context, a little bit of background on the exploitation of birds during the Magdalenian culture, Blenien is more broadly located in Western Central Europe, where it is surrounded by multiple contemporaneous Magdalenian sites, such as Gonnersdorf, Peterfels, Pincevent, or Autriche-en-Prévert. Amongst them, 11 sites present bird remains brought in and used by prehistoric populations. They exploited multiple species, but favored three particular taxa, which are the ptarmigans, the geese, and swan families. The main resources these Magdalenian societies retrieved from birds were the meat, of course, then the bones, specifically from the wings, to produce tubular objects and needles, and the last resources were feathers. And so when we studied Blenien, we were interested in knowing which species were exploited and if we will find any similarities to other sites in the region. For example, if they ate ptarmigan's meat or use goose humerus to produce needles. And to answer those questions, we conducted a taphonomical and zooarchaeological analysis where we recorded every information we could get from the artifacts, such as bone fragmentation and laterality, sex, age, and species determination. We recorded every surface modification and alterations we could observe. We quantified our data, did skeletal representation. And also, you have to keep in mind that bird remains from archaeological karstic sites are not automatically the waste of humans' activities. They can be the result of of natural death or other predators. So we had to identify every agent that might have accumulated birds inside the rock shelter. So now let's talk about our results. As I said earlier, we studied two layers from the Magdalenian level, but I will present to you the results as a whole because they are quite the same for both layers. So the first question is, which birds can be found at Blenien? We found a majority of very small passerines, which were not identified to species for methodological reasons. There were also mostly ground-dwelling birds with a majority of grouses, such as the black grouse, ptarmigans, and only one grey partridge. There were a few others, like the Eurasian curlew, the Eurasian woodcock, or plovers. There were a few corvids and raptor, like this little owl. And the next question is, who brought these birds in the rock shelter? It was not an easy question to answer, as the majority of species were only represented by one or two remains each, and these remains did not show any preying traces. So the origin of the presence of certain taxa is still an unsolved question for us. But we still identified at least three different predators, which are raptors, carnivorous mammals, and humans. So let's start with non-human predators. A few remains of very small passerines showed light digestion traces, and considering they were associated within the sediment with thousands and thousands of micro-mammals remains, our hypothesis is that they were regurgitated on the site in forms of pellets by a nocturnal bird of prey. For black grouse and ptarmigan's remains, they show a more heavy digestion as well as gnawing marks and more fragmented bones, which suggests some individuals were eaten by a carnivorous mammal. And what about Magdalenian population activities on the site? So Magdalenian population at Blenien captured 6 different taxa, which are the black grouse, ptarmigans, Eurasian curlew, the Eurasian jay, the golden plover, and an unidentified raptor from the Accipitridae family, which is the size of a common buzzard. And all of the exploited individuals were adults. So 3 of them, the black grouse, ptarmigans, and Eurasian curlew, were eaten. We found disarticulation, defleshing cut marks, as well as burning marks. They were mostly observed on wing bones, but it does not mean that other body parts were not processed. And these modifications showed that the carcasses were processed following a certain pattern, specifically for grouses. The carcasses were cut in portions. The portions were then grilled or cooked, and the meat was removed using a lithic tool or directly teeth, as we observed perforation, like you can see on these black grouse humors, that might have been done by jaw pressure while eating. On golden plover and Eurasian jay's remains, we found cut marks and notches resulting from the disarticulation of the shoulder and the elbow, only for the jay. Humans may have been interested in retrieving birds' wings, but considering the lack of other evidences, it is difficult to suggest a strong hypothesis on what exactly they were looking for. And we have the same problem for the raptor, counting only 1 remain with multiple cut marks. So it's a radius, you can see 1 cut marks here. All of these cut marks may have been done by defleshing, disarticulating members, or extracting feathers. It's difficult to say, and it is the only raptor remain used by prehistoric population on the site. And this part of the wing does not contain a lot of meat, so we would set aside the nutritional purpose. So, to conclude this part, humans at Blenien did capture ptarmigans, but not any geese nor swans like on many other sites. Nonetheless, they captured original species for which we never had any evidences for the region yet, like the black grouse, the Eurasian jay, Eurasian curlew, or the golden plover. They ate meat, which is a common activity, but there is no evidence of bone use. Maybe they searched for feathers, but it is only a suggestion, a vague hypothesis, as we can't really prove it. And to finish, I wanted to say that by identifying bird species and which species were exploited by these Magdalenians, we were able to identify the seasonality of both occupation and some large past environment evidences. So the ethology of 2 migratory birds that you can see here, the Eurasian curlew and the golden plover, suggests they were present in the region around the site during their breeding season, which currently corresponds to spring and summer seasons. Furthermore, the avian spectrum shows Blenien is surrounded by cold open lands, boreal forests, as well as humid zones, such as ponds, swamps, or humid grassland. But 2 species, the little owl and the Eurasian jay, suggest the presence of more temperate environment. But we found only 1 little owl remain, which could be intrusive and coming from more recent layers. As for the jay, although actual population predominantly occupy temperate forests, they also can be found sometimes in more boreal forest or colder climate. So we recently sent a Eurasian jay's remain to datation, so I hope that we will have precise answers soon on the presence of these taxa in the Magdalenian layers. Thank you for your attention.